Recorded live.
Hello and welcome to the Virtualization Security Podcast, episode number 115. Our guests today are Eben Rodriguez, who's an IT industry veteran, now serving as Director of Virtualization and Cloud Testing for NSS Labs right here in Austin, Texas, where I am now located. And myself, Edward Haletke, a.k.a. TechSoWell on just about everything, and author of several books. You can look them up on Amazon, and moderator of this podcast and analyst for the virtualization practice. And our special guest this week is Alex. And Alex, you better pronounce your last name because I'll murder it. Alex?
Yes, I am Alex Kipkalo. I have been working as an architect in Microsoft, and now I am presenting Five9 as a company who is doing some virtualization security stuff for Hyper-V.
So that's Alex Kipkalo.
Right.
And you now work for Five9 as a Director of Product Management, correct?
Yes.
Five9 is actually really cool. I heard about you guys about 6 months ago, almost a year ago actually, somewhere between 6 and 9 a year ago, that you had the first introspective security solution for Hyper-V. Now, unfortunately, we don't know much here about Hyper-V security because it's been very hard to find anybody willing to talk about it inside of Microsoft in a somewhat public forum. Very limited to security professionals, I would say. So, what can you tell us about Five9 and how you interact and integrate with Hyper-V?
So, first of all, Five9 was the first ever partner who was developing anything for Hyper-V and was here with Microsoft from the very beginning. We do three main things for Hyper-V that no one else is doing for this platform. First of all, we are doing agentless antivirus protection for virtual machines, meaning we are installing sort of our software on each Hyper-V node, and we develop our own CDT driver. Like you have such driver in VMware from VMware side itself. Microsoft does not give you a change-based tracking driver to track what is being written to VHD on the block level. We in Five9 do have such technology, and we intersect what is being written to each VHD from the virtual machine, and if a virus is found, we are blocking this inside virtual machine without installing anything in the machine itself. They are working with different antivirus vendors, so it's multi-vendor engine, and I guess it's pretty cool that you do not need to install anything inside machine. There are no antivirus storms as everything is being done from host. And what's the most amazing is that I am scanning not all the disks of the virtual machine, but as a change-based tracking is working, I scan only what has been changed since the last scan. So you are writing something inside the machine, and immediately that is being scanned by antivirus. It can be Sophos, it can be G5 Viper, it can be Kaspersky. In some close future, it will be Microsoft Forefront, for those who love Microsoft antivirus, you know. And I guess that is the thing that is probably the most famous for Five9 in the market for now. The second product, again, represented from the very first start of Hyper-V, we were developing a firewall for virtual machines from the host level. Initially, in Windows Server 2008, there was no intelligent switch in Hyper-V platform. So we were the partner who was providing some sort of software control, ACLs from one VM to another VM. With Windows Server 2012, Microsoft has done some good work to do that from PowerShell for users. We can deep, now we allow firewalls for virtual machines that use network virtualization and VGRE, something like that. We are creating groups of virtual machines like Amazon guys do, and you can create like security groups for web server, security group for databases, and create different firewall rules between these security groups. We are working on multi-tenancy to allow certain tenants or clouds owners to control their own VMs, what Microsoft is not giving you in basic Windows functionality, what they have in System Center Virtual Machine Manager. And our recent cool new feature that has last week probably been presented as a beta, we are allowing encryption of virtual machines from virtual machines themselves. You, as a tenant owner, run a special utility that encrypts virtual machines from host administrator. That is what VMware guys do not have on the field, and probably, I guess, no any virtualization solution has. That I can encrypt virtual machines as the owner of this machine, and the virtualization admin has no access to the data inside machine. Still, you have an ability to turn the VM on, to turn the VM off, even to export and import machine, to copy it to another server and run it. But if you do not have the password for the machine, you're not able to log in, and if you shut it down, you're not able to mount it to trick something with the password. So that is probably the big future for, current situation when we do not trust for clouds, when we are speaking, hey, the data can be stolen and so on. Besides that, Five9 offers ideas currently based on famous Snort engine that is being offered for virtual machines from host level. So it's quite basic list of what we are doing in Five9, trying to bring some security things to Hyper-V platform, to be a little bit closer to different platforms that have a lot of partners doing security stuff.
So here's the question: how does this all hook into Hyper-V? I'm assuming it's through the parent partition or the primary domain, whatever Microsoft is calling that this week. We're changing the name of it, but I'm assuming it's through there.
Right. Of course, we are speaking that we definitely have a sort of a client-based management console that can be installed on any PC, where you as an admin run some sort of window to manage everything. From this window, you select host for which you want to install the security, like add hypervisor host. When you add this hypervisor host, we install a sort of agent. That is not an appliance. That's a low-level driver inserted on the host level on a parent partition, as we are speaking here. Inside Hyper-V server, it's a low-level free SKU from Microsoft, or inside Windows Server with Hyper-V agent is installed, and this agent is managing virtual disks for antivirus and managing virtual network switch for firewall. It's managing virtual disks again for encrypting virtual machines, and again it's managing virtual switch for IDS.
Okay. You basically have a filter for the virtual switch, but you also have a filter for the disk. So you're actually hooking in at multiple levels. You have your own change block tracking tool or driver so that you can do change block tracking. And so you're hooking again, that's into the storage layer. So you're hooking the parent partition. So here's the big question thing that a lot of people that listen to this podcast may not actually know how Hyper-V works at that level. Let's see if I got this right, and you can tell me if I don't. Each VM talks through the VMM directly to the parent partition, and from the parent partition, you access all storage and networking. In that case, to get access to all the VM storage and networking, all you have to do is hook into the appropriate spots in the parent partition. Would that be correct?
When speaking about Hyper-V, and if it is a hypervisor level 1 or hypervisor level 2, it's a little bit confusing for VMware guys. When we're speaking about parent partition, do you remember old ES6 days when you had a management partition on ES6 on a fast ES6 host? So that's basically what we have on Hyper-V. We do have a hypervisor itself, but quite a teeny, like 1.5 megabyte. We do not have any driver inside hypervisor itself. It's just memory and CPU balancer. And on top of that, we have like a fat, huge Windows that's basically acting as a management solution for this hypervisor. What we have on this parent partition is a VMDP, a virtual machine worker process for each machine that allows some management of each machine and access from each machine to resources. And we have a single VMMS, virtual machine management service, that is the single Windows service in parent partition that allows like any external utility like Five9 Manager or internal utility like Hyper-V Manager to create VM, stop VM, start VM. If I'll queue the VMMS service, actually nothing will happen. VMs will still be running, but you will not be able to manage them through the API. You will not be able to see the list of VMs in the console. That will not halt any work inside machines themselves. In Five9, we do extend a so-called VHD store driver. That's a way how virtual machines are writing to this VHD file. So between the file itself and the container, the driver that writes to the VHD, we insert our own part of driver that is being change-based tracking part of the software. And we are controlling how blocks are being written to the VHD, and we see, hey, these blocks have been changed, so we are tracking these changed blocks as antivirusing, and we are re-encrypting these blocks if we are speaking about encryption. For Hyper-V switch, Microsoft has a like open platform. It's called WPS, Windows Filtering Platform, WFP, Windows Filtering Platform. And in a free version of Five9 Security, we are just offering, hey, it's just a nice UI for a free Microsoft filtering platform. Anyone on Hyper-V can go to PowerShell, like to a text-based management language, and tell, hey, VM network adapter ACL, VM1, port 80, allow. So that will open port 80 for virtual machine 1. For all its network interfaces. But if you want to do that in UI, you do not have that in Hyper-V Manager. You do not have that in VMM and System Center. We do have that in free Five9 Security for Hyper-V, so you just have this tool that is being able to create rules for virtual machines using Windows Filtering Platform. But with current trends that we are creating more and more virtual machines, we are trying to virtualize network. We are using NVGRE, and in Microsoft we are using a little bit different additional technology called IP address rewrite, when we are just changing IP address to single pool of IP addresses in the provider pool. And in this case, of course, Windows filtering, that real Microsoft Windows filtering doesn't work. So we are hooking up to the Hyper-V extensible switch with our additional driver and controlling every packet coming out of VM before it has been before it will be converted by any network virtualization. So our rules are working with packets coming from network virtualized virtual machines.
Okay. And you actually interact with all the other antivirus vendors. So what you're doing is providing a mechanism that they can call to get access to the data that they need in order to do the scan.
We are not offering them our own CBT technology. We are asking them for their SDK to offer their antivirus engine as a part of our product. As Five9 is currently being partly owned by GFI, we are offering GFI Viper in our free version because we are not paying anything for GFI as to our stakeholder. And we have agreements with Sophos and recently announced an agreement with Kaspersky, that's quite a famous Russian antivirus company. And we are dealing up with Microsoft to do something that's forefront. Unfortunately, Microsoft never before allowed anyone to use forefront engine externally out of Microsoft products. So we will be the first, probably, who will be delivering that engine in third-party products. Definitely, we understand that if we will be opening CBT driver to different antivirus companies, they will be happy, but probably at this moment they will produce too much heat about that, and we will be losing our own fame. So we are asking them for cooperation, and we are offering their antivirus engines inside our products. We are paying royalties for these antivirus companies.
Okay. So you're not doing anything special for them, but they have a specialized version of their software. So Who do I buy it from? Do I buy it from Kaspersky or do I buy it through Five9?
The main reason why should you buy it from Five9 is that you will not be using, you'll not be having any antivirus storms. Like imagine you have a VDI farm with 1,000 virtual machines, and these machines are starting to scan like 100 gig disk drives, and it's like 1 terabyte on the single loon or on a couple of loons, and it's a storm. It's in the middle of the day, people are reloading something from file servers, and the storage is like running as crazy and it's slow. With Five9, they're still using the same Kaspersky antivirus through our CBT driver, and they're checking just that blocks that are being written by users at the single moment. We are not running any scan of what we have already scanned if this data didn't change after our last scan, because it has not been changed. Why should they scan it again? We still can schedule scans for virtual machines, even for those that have been previously scanned and haven't changed after. For example, that can be useful for nighttime if I would consider, hey, probably we did not have some antivirus signatures because like Kaspersky didn't know about them and now they know. So we may schedule some night scans for these virtual machines that will scan machines themselves, and it will increase number of scanned blocks in our CBT.
So you basically wrote a CBT driver for each of the different antivirus vendors. So if I want to use Kaspersky's rules, I could use Kaspersky rules. If I want to use Bitdefenders, I could use Bitdefenders. If I want to use Microsoft's, I could use Microsoft's, but they have to buy it through Five9. Correct.
Right, but when we...
How do you, then the question becomes is how do I manage it? If I have 100 nodes, how do I manage this? Is there a nice interface for managing Five9 and the antivirus, or do I have to manage each individual node individually?
They have a single management interface through Five9. We are seeing hosts, we are seeing all virtual machines. I can create global rules that are working for all virtual machines on selected hosts. I can create tenant rules, like which are working for all machines from a single tenant, or I can create individual rules for each individual virtual machine. I can have
and then when we look at that, and does it integrate into System Center? Because that's what I would normally do to manage my Hyper-V environment. I would actually be living in System Center. I wouldn't be living in a third-party console. So the question is does, like a lot of other tools, they integrate into vCenter or into Zen Console, will this new management construct integrate into System Center?
Exactly. We do ship a free plugin for System Center Virtual Machine Manager that's currently working with both VMM 2012 and VMM 2012 R2, the version that's just been RTM. So we are just shipping you our Five9 security. You can use our own console, or you can install a free plugin on your VMM administrator console and manage our firewall, our antivirus from your VMM console. There's a single Five9 icon additional inside VMM. You are pressing this icon and you can create antivirus rules or firewall rules for virtual machines, which are not generally available inside normal VMM console.
That's good to know. But how does this scale? What's the maximum number of hosts that this can handle before it runs into some problems? Can it handle a couple hundred? Is it thousands? Not VMs, but hosts.
The maximum implementation currently held by Five9 was 500 hosts. That's one of providers, hosting providers in the United States. So we do not have any written limitation for our product itself, because our products are not dependent on number of hosts. Each host has a cache of all the rules created by administrators. Rules, of course, are stored in a single database. So if you're speaking about huge deployment, we are creating a cluster of databases, and one of our customers is using so-called virtual clusters. That's SQL always own technology in SQL 2012. When you have a, let me say, data center A and a cluster of SQL, data center B a cluster of SQL, and between these two different clusters you have a single synchronous replicated SQL database, which is being used by 5.9 security and by VMM. VMM itself has a limitation, I guess, 800 hosts, so that's quite
large
for us.
Quite large. So, and you actually have the firewall rules with this and all that. So, a couple of questions came out of VMworld this year. I'm not sure if you were able to attend. And these were all security questions that actually I think are facing all the hypervisors. And even these are the same ones that came out that I got out of it, and I just applied them all of it. Question number one is because of the way that virtual storage appliances are implemented, or virtual SANs are implemented, or however storage hypervisor or whatever they're going to call them are implemented. In some cases, you really want the lowest latency possible between them, the storage, and them and the hypervisors they're sharing out to. So, for example, if I get a left-hand networks, or actually I get an HP Store Virtual, is a virtual storage appliance that does do replication amongst multiple nodes, and it makes use of either local storage or other storage available to it. There are two paths into this. There's the data path, or that's a SCSI path. It just goes through the SCSI side of the channel, and it's just a pure data path. The other one is a networking path. A lot of the security tools out there that get in the way of one or the other of those tend to slow them down quite a bit. So the question becomes is how can a security tool, kind of like 5.9, just get out of the way and not even operate if it's been told that this is a virtual storage appliance? That was question number one.
Did you ask any of the vendors about that?
Yeah, and I did not get satisfactory answers, but I don't know. I haven't heard what 5.9 does in that case.
I can answer the first question. When you are installing 5.9 security, you are selecting which virtual machines are protected by 5.9. So by default, if you select a host as a managed by 5.9 security, it protects all new created machines. And the machines that has been previously created on host are remained unprotected, meaning we by default do not apply our firewall rules to them. We are not passing their traffic through 5.9 WPF extension.
But the driver is in place, so that it's somehow traversing part of that driver, correct?
Let me clarify a little bit more. In Hyper-V, you can create different Hyper-V network switches. Each Hyper-V network switch is being created on top of physical network interface. And each network security or each network extension to Hyper-V, like Windows Filter and Platform or 5.9 security driver, is being enabled per virtual switch. I can create a virtual switch like a VM network virtual switch, and of course 5.9 will be enabled on the switch. And I can create a virtual storage switch that will not have enabled WPF filter, that will not have 5.9 security enabled on the switch. So traffic coming through the switch will not come through 5.9 solution.
Okay, that's good to know. What about the storage side of it? That you guys have a change block tracking. I mean, this is a storage array. It's going to be changing blocks like crazy. Is there a way to disable a change block tracking on a VM per VM basis so it doesn't actually do it? Or further along that line, could I use that to actually do better replication? I mean, I got both of those questions.
So I would imagine that change block tracking is something that's always on no matter what, but their tool can go and scan. There's probably a table that has a list of which blocks have been changed, and it can go and scan that and then decide to do the scanning or not do the scanning.
Well, if it's a data store for VMs, you really don't want it scanning it. It shows up a lot of false negatives, it always has. False positives, it always has. So the question becomes, can I turn that off, that whole scanning of the storage layer for this particular virtual storage appliance?
Okay, let me answer here. First of all, in Hyper-V, we do not have exact data store term what they are operating. All disks are more or less equal, and we are speaking about disks and folders, it's Windows. And for the driver, we still do have a driver under the VHD stored Microsoft driver, but if the VM is not selected as protected VM, the driver simply does not touch any block. CBT is on as a technology, but is not touching those VMs that are not marked as protected by Five9 security. So if I have a VSA, if I have a virtual storage appliance, let me say HP P4000 virtual machine on Hyper-V, I deselect antivirus protection and encryption for this machine. Change-based tracking driver is still here, but it's not reading, it's not checking each block, it's not trying to understand if this block has been changed or not. It's just simply giving it to be written to VHD or VHDX file.
Okay. Makes sense.
Can I ask a question before you get your next one in, Ed? So I had heard a mention of encryption. Could you please elaborate on that a little bit more? You said you're able to encrypt the traffic between virtual machines, I think I heard you say, and that would be on the network level. And then also, if you do also support encryption on the disk, is your support there? So that's kind of a two-part question.
Good question. We are not speaking about encryption on network level. We are giving this back to IPsec or whatever you will set up as a network administrator. We are currently speaking about encryption of disks. We are hooking up a VHD driver, and we are encrypting the disk itself. The disk of a virtual machine does not contain MBR or GPT table inside VHD itself. It contains something being encrypted. And only signed services with VMMS or VMWP, the two services, Windows services that are Hyper-V related and have a signature from Microsoft, and Five9 encryptor services that have a special signature from Five9 can manage this file, meaning to turn this on, to turn machine off, to migrate machine from one node to another. Administrator itself, if you are a Windows administrator, Hyper-V admin, you can stop VM, you can start VM, because when you are sending a stop signal to VM, you actually are sending the signal to VMMS service, and the service itself stops the VM. It gratefully shuts down VM, or if needed, it starts VM, it boots to VM. But if you try to open VHD, in Windows, you click to VHD file, it automatically mounts as a drive letter with all the files. So if you click to the encrypted VHD, you will see, hey, corrupted VHD detected, because it does not have a partition table. You will not be able to access the data. You still can copy machine to another server, export VM, import it to another server, and turn it on. And it will turn on, it will boot, because VMMS has a signature, it will be able to boot this machine. But you will need to have an administrator of the VM password to log into this machine to do something. You will not be able to hook up to this machine from the host level. Consider that as an encrypted backup from some site, encrypted backup that runs.
Okay. So you're not able to, as part of the firewall function, is there any ability to encrypt traffic or ensure IPsec is enabled?
No, as we are not touching operating system itself, we are not giving any agent inside virtual machine. We are not speaking about IPsec. We are not hooking up traffic. All we do is allow or block this traffic on the port level.
Okay, so I guess that's another question I had is some firewalls are able to inspect the network traffic and allow HTTPS, for example, but not plain text HTTP or FTP or Telnet. So they'll allow SSH and HTTPS on any port. How are you writing your firewalls? Is it simply a 5-tuple rule with the source and destination port and IP address?
When I create a rule, it's a rule having a port number, protocol number, and destination source. So if the protocol is not protocol number 50, for example, then you are not we are not allowing that.
Yeah. So for DNS traffic, I would allow port 53, UDP, and TCP but I might be able to use another protocol over that port because I've opened that port. So it's like I can run SSH or tunnel HTTP traffic through port 53 because I've opened it, right? There's no ability to detect it's really DNS traffic.
For that, in 5.9 Security Data Center, we have an IDS engine based on Snort.
Okay, so it can do some alerting. Okay, perfect.
That all is clear to me.
Ed, you had some other questions from VMworld about, one was latency and
well,
how to
the one about the VSA is still struggling because when we start talking about it, you've still got something in the way, in this case in the storage path. You may have it in the networked path if it's set up incorrectly. So that's still a question. And it's outstanding. I mean, I'm not sure anybody really has a good answer for it yet. If I had to traverse yet one more interface or one more driver, that just adds latency no matter what I'm doing. Even if it's almost a pass-through, a short circuit through the driver, it still has to go through there. So the data has to be copied in and copied out, and it's another thing on the stack and all that. So it's actually not most. The answer is fine, but it's still not necessarily adequate because even nanoseconds or microseconds of latency is very, very high. So that was question number one. The other question was really about authentication, and that is there a way using 5.9 to set up a to set up a per user or per identity rule that allows me to access various virtual machines and or tools inside of virtual machines based on a well-known identity, which includes location and device as part of it. IP is well understood. We could definitely do IP rules, not a problem, but mapping those to the user is often difficult.
Give me an example of what this rule would look like. So you're talking about like a firewall or some sort of security policy rule that says allow this machine to talk to that machine on this port.
No, not even machine or ports.
Okay.
I think that's our thing. So I'm outside my home country. I need to access my email. Depending on which country I am and jurisdictional levels, the mailbox that I get access to could be living inside that country. France is a good example of that. If I'm logging in from France to read my email, I got to read from a French mailbox. That's the way it is, jurisdictional. Which means that my mailbox may be redirected on the fly to somewhere else or to a French mail server on the fly. Number two is that I log in again, coming in through standard BDI session, whatever you want to use there, and I am in another country, let's say Papua New Guinea. I may only get access to my inbox and none of my folders. When I am logged in through inside my home country, wherever that is, I am allowed access to 6 more applications. And when I'm inside the office building or the location I normally work from, I'm allowed access to everything. So effectively, based on my user, my location, and device I'm using, what I have access to do my job is different. Sometimes it's just a DNS rule change, as in the case of the French mailbox. Sometimes it's actually limiting access to various aspects of an application, and other ones are just limiting access to applications. Now, if we map an application to a number of VMs, I need to control it through that mechanism. And that's actually the big question is how do you do that in a virtual environment today? It's not just user-centric. It's app-centric and data-centric all merged into one. That was question number 2.
So,
which leads very quickly to question number 3, which is how do you define the application from a security context perspective? Most of the tools I see are VM-centric. In other words, they define the application to be the VM. Where if you look at a lot of applications are 20 or 30 or hundreds of VMs, Or the application could be everything within inside of a given trust zone, which could also be physical hardware. Or if it's a multi-tier application, I have a front end, I have my middleware, which could be Gemfire, SQL, it could be any other, it could be something from IBM, it could be something homegrown, and then I have a database sitting out there on physical hardware. So I'm actually covering lots of gaps there, and application-wise, I'm only allowed to the front. To manage it, I'm allowed to the other areas. Kind of like what I'm thinking about is how do you make an app-centric security policy instead of a VM-centric or port and IP-based security policy without having to actually do the mapping?
I've seen a lot of that direction that you're talking about just being done through load balancers. They have to know the location and have some data. There's metadata that's captured from the end user to help direct them to the correct app servers.
Mm-hmm. But again, it's still server-centric. I'm directing to the correct app servers. Has 5.9 looked at doing application type of user application and data-centric elements?
No, 5.9 is not doing that. They are currently quite a small company. What they are currently trying to do, we are dealing with hypervisor and virtual machine. We still do understand that the question of device access and information protection is quite important, and Hyper-V has a little bit bonus comparing to other virtualization solutions here because it's surrounded by huge Windows infrastructure. And with recently released Windows Server 2012 R2, there is a new bring your own device way of living when dynamic access control can analyze which device are you running from, what is your location, if you are like in US or in like Somali, or if you are running on a Windows computer with BitLocker or on a normal Windows computer, or you are on phone or an iPad. And depending on such conditions, it will form ACL, like a sort of a dynamic group. And our 5.9 security is quite normally working with dynamic groups. So as our security principles are not like 5.9 user with 5.9 password, but it's Active Directory groups, including dynamic groups. If you have Active Directory 2012 R2 and you have BYOD configured, you can create dynamic groups based on location, device type, security policies on the device, and your group membership will be formed on these conditions. And like application published, virtual machines accessible, security options available to you in 5.9 Security Console will depend on these parameters.
Can you? But it's still dependent on IP and port. It's a packet filtering firewall instead of being a user-centric firewall or even an application-centric firewall. And it still begs the question: how do you define the application so that? And you're saying I could use security groups. I could say, okay, this security group is this application. But how do I do that automatically when the tools internal to deploying applications know that already? How do I manage getting them to talk to each other?
Yeah, that's where a cloud automation tool comes in. Could I ask a question, though? I need to back
Not
up
just
and have
cloud
you repeat
automation. It's just any automation tool comes in, which requires that 5.9 have an API, or at least the management component have an API.
It sounds like it does. So, what was the name of the dynamic? You said BRID or something. What is it that gets created automatically to generate the security groups?
That's like in Windows Server 2012, that was called Dynamic Access Control. And in Server 2012 R2, there is a new initiative called Bring Your Own Device. It's a people-centric feature allowing to create groups based on device security, location, and so on.
So Microsoft has a feature called BYOD now?
Right.
That's great.
In Windows Server 2012 R2. It will be publicly available, I guess, in October.
I wonder if they're patenting that technology. So
not under that name, they won't be able to.
If you enable the BYOD features in the Microsoft Windows Server 2012 R2, it will automatically, you define your device profile or your user profile, and it will automatically create a dynamic access list. Is that correct? Access control list can be created dynamically to program the firewall?
First of all, on Windows side, on BYOD side, you will be creating rules on how to manage like devices or locations to add user to the group or not. In 5.9 security, you will be simply adding this dynamic group to security solution.
Okay, so this is very similar to what we were talking about earlier. So although your product doesn't do it all, it leverages the same technology to do that using Microsoft tools. So this is similar to what other firewall vendors do, where they have the capability to see the user, and they know this user is logged in this location because of some other Active Directory log or data that's available. And then they are able to dynamically create access lists to let that user's IP in and out, right?
Correct.
Wow.
However, knowing when you log out is actually the most important thing, and unfortunately, a lot of these tools don't know. So all you can do is when they disappear from Active Directory, which may not be happening anytime soon.
Well, they put it out. Yeah, you're right. It is kind of a little bit of a guesswork. They have to, allow access for 10 minutes or something, and then recheck it again to make sure you're still there.
Again, difficult but possible. But I don't think that's a great way, because I first have to detect that you've done an Active Directory, which means that I could be 30 seconds with no access. And if this is a critical component, 30 seconds is a long time.
Yeah. But the alternative, which vendors have just opened up all users, like if you know this, let's give it, the example is the HR department needs access to this application. So if you don't have this more intelligent dynamic access control, you basically have to allow, because HR's in, say, building, X, you have to allow everybody in building X to access the HR application. But with this method, you'll know that HR people's laptops are on these 10 IP addresses, and so it will dynamically allow a rule to allow those 10 IP addresses into the HR application. Now, assuming that the IPs aren't spoofed and a whole bunch of other things. I think IP is the wrong tool. Well, it's not perfect. It's the current state of the art.
No. You can get better than that today.
So we got 10 minutes. Are we going to be able to talk about VMworld before we wrap up?
If I can get GPS coordinates today, I can get typematic displays. I can get all sorts of information that literally will identify me at the other end of the device. Depending on the device and depending on the IP is, I think, the wrong way to go about that. I think it's a good start, but I think we need to go much, much further past that.
Agreed.
Now,
VMworld
a little bit. And I just gave you 3 questions that came out of VMworld for me. And I didn't even get into the really tough ones yet. I'll get into those later. But Alex, was 5.9 at VMworld at all, just talking to people?
No, unfortunately we don't. We are not, we have not been invited to VMworld, but I'd love to cover some questions appealing from VMworld in our website.
Okay. So one of the things I heard a lot about was, of course, network virtualization. You mentioned that 5.9s or the Microsoft product support a tunneling protocol called NXGRE. Is there any talk of VXLAN or other types of tunneling protocols? And is NXGRE out of the box supported by Windows 2012?
NVGRE is being supported from Windows 2012 and 2012 R2, and it works seamlessly with VXLANs from VMware side. It's just considered the same.
There's a lot of talk
is this NVGRE, which is coming from Cisco? Okay.
Absolutely same.
Yeah,
100%. It's not NXGRE, it's NVGRE.
Oh, thank you. It's so easy to get them all confused. There's talks of, I don't know if you've heard of Nicira, the company that VMware bought. There's talks of them making that virtual switch compatible with Hyper-V. Are you aware of that? Are you interested in that? Is that something you guys are tracking?
No, for me, I'm not aware of that.
Actually, even it's already compatible with Hyper-V, Zen, and KVM because all three of those support the Open vSwitch, and the other part in the Nicira that will be available to cross boundaries is based on the Open vSwitch.
Yeah, you can't download that today and install it on Hyper-V, though. So.
Well, you can't download it for anything today. It's
absolutely.
not publicly available.
No, that's not true.
Yeah,
Nicira's been shipping product for years.
And Nicira is different than NSX. They are different products. That's what I've been told from the powers that be inside of VMware. But they are definitely looking at, since it's based on the Open vSwitch and Microsoft has an Open vSwitch component to their extensible switch, I don't see that as being a problem.
So I guess one question I have is how many virtual switch do Microsoft support today? They have one that comes out of the box.
3.
Alex,
one out of
have
the
you
box,
heard of the Cisco Nexus 1000V? Is the 5.9 firewall only compatible with the Microsoft vSwitch, or will it work with other vSwitches for Windows 2012?
Actually, Cisco Nexus is not a vSwitch like it is on VMware side. It's a virtual switch extension being installed on top of Hyper-V virtual switch like 5.9 is.
Oh, okay. So is it compatible, or do they work together, or are they mutually exclusive? You can only have one.
You can have different switch extensions, and we have customers who use both.
Ah, perfect. What would be the advantage of using Nexus 1000V with 5.9 versus just 5.9 alone?
Nexus has quite a lot of Cisco integrated stuff that we do not provide. Like most of all, 5.9 is antivirus, firewall, and IDS solution. But like Nexus is playing in a little bit different league and provides quite different SIMs, and it costs definitely way another money.
Yeah,
actually, there's a free version. There's a free version of the Nexus.
Not for Hyper-V.
That's true, not for Hyper-V. So Nexus, I mean, the other extension that's available for Hyper-V even is actually the Open vSwitch.
Okay.
So you have 3 compatible effectively switches. However,
they have quite more actually. They have something from NAC. Being in Microsoft Virtualization group, I've seen like 5 or 6 different extensions for Hyper-V.
Did you say NEC like NEC, National Electric Corp, or Nippon, the Japanese company?
Oh, that's interesting. I did not know about that one. That's very cool. There's actually 2 more for vSphere that most people don't know about. One is the IBM 5000V, and now HP has their own 5000V.
HP has a Hyper-V one too, but it's in beta, and I'm not allowed to tell what it has.
Interesting. Now, are these going to support different tunneling protocols and be compatible with each other? Because not all the VMware customers use the NXGRE?
NVGRE.
They don't all use NVGRE.
So none of them do.
How will they work together if they don't have compatible protocols?
With Hyper-V, they have a feature called Network Virtualization Gateway. It's a part of newly released Windows Server 2012 R2 that is actually transforming NVGRE packets to different types of protocols. I'm not completely cool here to explain that.
Okay, but I guess my question would be, are we able to extend the layer 2 network from one hypervisor platform to another hypervisor platform such that virtual machines or workloads, applications could theoretically move between locations, data center locations, where in one data center they're using Hyper-V, and in another data center they're using, VMware or Amazon or some other virtualization platform, and how do we connect the networks between these 2 environments?
With Hyper-V, if you set up NVGRE, like a network virtualization solution, and if you have a GRE-enabled physical switch, you are able to connect it to any other virtualization solution, like to VMware with their own network virtualization policies.
So now,
you
now
have to use Cisco, and you have to use Cisco in the middle right now.
So you need a physical Ethernet switch that supports NVGRE and the other virtualization protocols as well. Like
no, you need something like that gateway that we were just Alex was mentioning, because Microsoft only speaks NVGRE. Cisco
well, this gateway
speaks
he said is a
NVGRE.
Microsoft. He said it's a Microsoft gateway. I'm just trying to be clear what our options are. Is it a physical appliance or software installed on a Windows?
Network virtualization gateway is a feature of Windows Server 2012 R2. It's a part of Hyper-V role. So you can install such a virtual machine that will be acting as a gateway from other virtualized machines to external network.
And now we get back to Ed's number one question: is what's all the impact of latency and performance with using these gateways?
That's a question to Microsoft side.
Yeah, exactly. And we have some customers we talked to at VMworld who were expressing the same concerns, not just between different vendors on platforms, but just even how do you extend a virtual network to a physical network, and do you use bridges, do you use virtual appliances to reduce the latency, and what's the best way to build a data center today? We're turning things upside down as more and more physical solutions get virtualized. The boundary between the physical and the virtual world is becoming an area of concern.
And I don't see that changing, because I actually see that the boundary is going to go away as we add more network virtualization. And in fact, we've been doing network virtualization for years. It's just that now this is a better way to manage it. When you think about what we're doing and what it is, the wiring just becomes, the physical just becomes so much plumbing.
Right.
And, hey, just find yourself a good plumber, effectively, is what I would think would be the way people would go about that. Now,
should network architects change their title to plumber, head plumber?
well, I mean, you got cable huggers, and you got people that think that everything needs to be in the physical switch or in a physical firewall. I just don't happen to agree with that. I think that what you get is tools like 5.9 that work inside of Hyper-V, and it's the only thing currently for Hyper-V, and it's the only thing that actually provides security in Hyper-V that I've ever heard of, even Hyper-V itself.
So, Alex, I heard about you guys a couple years ago. Or you guys are growing, and customers are loving your technology, and it seems like things are moving more and more virtual. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Now, is there any other security inside of Hyper-V that we should know about that's built in? Other than the fact that you can't reach the hypervisor that we all know about, but anything else?
You mean like encryption or other types of logging?
No,
what
logging I would
expect. Speak about on Hyper-V is what is the Hyper-V authentication model and how Hyper-V can grant individual permissions for different actions for users and groups. That's quite arrogantly described on Microsoft's website.
I have a question. Since Microsoft...
Hold on a second, Ethan. Let's let Alex finish that particular one. So other than groups and permissions, what else?
I was going to prompt him, ask about encryption, if that's something that is included.
No, it's not. You get BitLocker. You get BitLocker that you can put inside the parent partition, and it'll turn on for all the VHDs. But it's actually the drives that the file system that they're on is encrypted, not necessarily individual drives.
Oh, you can encrypt parent partition. You can start it from Windows 2012 with BitLocker, encrypt a shared disk, a cluster disk, and of course you can install BitLocker inside virtual machine to have a completely encrypted thing. There is a confusion that some people think that you cannot have BitLocker without TPM chip, without a device, and of course virtual machines do not have this device. But there are quite a lot of different ways how BitLocker can work. And of course, you do not want your virtual machines to boot only if administrator enters some PIN. But starting from Windows 2012, Microsoft offers quite nice thing called BitLocker Network Unlock. It's like a server or appliance inside my data center that is BOOTP enabled, and DHCP server gives some scope information about the server to everyone who starts from DHCP. So I am a virtual machine, I am encrypted with BitLocker, I am starting and I am receiving an IP address from DHCP server, and I'm crying, hey, I'm encrypted. Who is my BitLocker Network Unlock server?
Wow.
Here it is, and it decrypts itself automatically. And if the VM is moved to any other location, hey, it doesn't boot. You need to enter a lone number.
Right.
The funny thing that it works on VMware too, because that doesn't, there's not Hyper-V only stuff. You can have this virtual machines running on VMware, and you have a BitLocker Unlock server as a VMware virtual machine.
Wow.
Now, actually, having a key management server for BitLocker is a very good thing, and I like that. But when you look at VMs themselves and what we're talking about here, there's always a problem that if I can get into the parent partition, I have complete and utter ownership of Hyper-V. So how is that prevented?
If you're speaking about this BitLocker stuff and I encrypt VMs from inside, let me say I'm a hosting provider and I have a lot of tenants, and I'm a small tenant. I have my own DHCP server inside my own isolated network environment. I have my own virtual machines that are being encrypted by BitLocker, and only I know the key to decrypt them if offline. My DHCP server runs here in my cloud. If my VM, one of them or two of them, are moved out of my cloud, they do not boot because they do not see my own DHCP server.
It's not just the DHCP server they're seeing, it's actually the
BitLocker
key server. Yeah, but the key is the key to do the BitLocker unlock is actually transferred and read into memory of the VM that did BitLocker. So given that, memory is in there, the key means it's in memory, the disk is available, even if it's encrypted. We still haven't defeated the basic process that anybody with access to the parent partition can dump memory at any time, therefore he gets the key and a bunch of other good things. And then you can also get the disk. So how do they protect the parent partition other than the standard put a firewall in front of it?
Well, that's the vault. You need to put all your protection on there.
No, you can't. I mean, this is there's no tool that I know of that prevents you from doing this. It's all operational as far as I know, operational controls.
Sure.
But is there something inside of that Microsoft recommends that we don't know about yet for this? I've been bringing this example up for 5 years, and people say, people would have to get through so many levels to get there. It's like, well, yeah, possible to do.
Put a two-man rule in place.
Mm-hmm. That's an operational change, not a technology change. Well, Alex has left. It's actually the end of the show, so I'm going to leave with that question. And it's kind of at 5 past our 1 hour here. Even any last thoughts?
Well, just networking seems to be the theme of VMworld to me. I didn't hear a lot about cloud so much, and there were a surprising number of storage vendors there as well. So,
and anybody using Hyper-V, definitely check out 5.9. Very cool software. Some of the first security for Microsoft, which is actually excellent to hear. And I'd like to thank our guest, Alex. We had to drop off a little early, and thank you very much for joining us. Have a good day.
See you later.